So I've got a 6-ingredient, 30-minute dish for you that is so simple and so easy, but it's one of the proteins that people are very scared of cooking. It's pork chops. So what I've done here is I've taken the skin off the pork chop itself because we're gonna use that as kind of crackle, so it kind of adds another texture to the dish. Look, if your pork chop comes without skin, don't fret, you don't really need it, but if you want that extra textural element, it's definitely great to have. We've got some pork skin here that came from the pork chop. What I'm gonna do is just sprinkle some salt on top of that, just to help the crackle along. Gorgeous, let's just pat this guy down. Put it on a roasting tray that's been lined. And then that just goes straight into the oven at 200 degrees for about 20 to 25 minutes until it puffs up and gets really golden and beautiful. So that's all done, ready to go. 20 minutes to 25, we'll check up on it. So we've got the pork chops here. As you can see, I left a lot of the fat on the pork chop. There's a reason for that, because we kind of want it to be two types of crackle now. So we've got the skin that's gonna puff up, and then we're gonna get this beautiful layer of fat here that's gonna get really well caramelized. So what I need to do now is just salt my pork chops. A little bit of salt, beautiful. That's salted now. I'm just gonna quickly run my knife through the skin, just cross-hatching it so that it helps the fat kind of render into the pan, because we're gonna actually cook it in the pork fat itself. So what I'm doing is I'm scoring the pork fat, and like a duck breast, what I'm doing is I'm gonna actually put this fat side down into a cold pan and bring it into temperature slowly so that the fat renders off and becomes kind of the cooking oil for the pork chop. If you do it in a hot pan, what will happen is you end up burning the fat and it won't render out, and you won't get that extra layer of fat to cook everything else in. Straight in, cold pan. Now let's just position it so it kind of stands up on itself. Heat goes on. We just want that now to render away for about 4 to 5 minutes. So I'm just gonna let it sit there, do its thing, do a little bit of cleaning up and come back and watch it. So as you can see, the pork is rendering its fat out now, and it's getting quite beautiful. You can hear the sizzle. It's smelling great. I'll show you the crust in about 2 or so minutes to see what we actually want from it. All right, so that's looking gorgeous. All the fat looks like it's rendered out beautifully. I'll just show you this now. You can have a look. There's a nice crust on the outside of the fat. The fat's kind of rendered out. You're getting this really crunchy little piece there. All we're gonna do now is cook it on the other sides. So straight down onto a pan. Cooking it in its own juices, it's just gonna really intensify that pork flavor. We're gonna have it for about 4 to 5 minutes on this side, but it's time to add in our next ingredients. So we've got some fennel. That's just gonna go straight in. Now I reserved the fronds of the fennel just for plating a little bit later. Don't worry if you're layering it up too much, because we're gonna cover this and it's gonna steam and cook the fennel that way as well. All right, fennel's in, pork's cooking away, onto our garlic. So I've got 2 cloves of garlic here. I'm just gonna thinly slice him up, beautiful. That's gonna go straight into our little pan, just on the side. Got some rosemary, I'm just gonna break him up. He can go in as well. 6 ingredients, really friendly, really easy, but they all love each other so much. This dish is just gonna be full of flavor. So I'm gonna cover him now for about 2 to 3 minutes. The pork's been cooking with the fennel for about 1.5 minutes now, so it only needs that little bit of time, and then we flip everything. So that's had its 2 to 3 extra minutes. The pork, let me just check up on that. Looking beautiful, time to flip it. You can really smell the rosemary coming through and the garlic now. I'm gonna flip the fennels as well. Yum. Look at how beautifully caramelized that is. That's looking so gorgeous, but it's time to add in my second last ingredient, which are canned peaches. Look, you can use fresh peaches if you want, but the reason I'm using canned peaches is it adds a lot more sugar content, because obviously the peaches are canned in their juices in a syrup. So there's a lot of sugar in this, so it'll help caramelize the entire dish. That just goes straight in. That's just gonna cook away with everything else for 2 to 3 minutes, and then in goes my last ingredient, which is a little bit of whiskey. So this part always freaks me out a tiny bit. I'm gonna add some whiskey to it, so it might kind of catch on fire, but you want that because it adds a little bit of smokiness to the dish. All right. So what you do now, once the alcohol's gone in, is you just kind of tip it towards the flame a little bit. Look, don't worry too much. It will burn out. It's really beautiful flavor-wise, and it's exactly what this dish kind of needs. But yeah, it always freaks me out a tiny bit. I actually did this at home once and burnt my eyelashes off, so you really do need to be careful. Just stand back a little bit when you're doing it. All right, so that's looking absolutely gorgeous. We're gonna just let that alcohol kind of cook down for about a minute or so. Then we're gonna take the pork off the heat and rest it. So the pork's rested for about 2 to 3 minutes now. It's perfect. The sauce has really kind of condensed and gotten really sticky in the pan, which is absolutely gorgeous. Everything else is ready, so let's get plating, and then we'll pull out the crackling and just put that on top. You should smell this, like the whiskey's really, really coming through so strongly. You get a little bit of garlic and then just a hint of rosemary in the back, which is absolutely divine. Pour some of this over the top. Pour some of that over the top. All the stickiness. A couple more pieces of this rosemary, just for visuals. And then we can pull this guy out and crunch him on top. As you can see here, the skin has gotten really hard and crispy, which you can hear. I'm just gonna let him cool down for about a second or so, break him up and just crunch him on top, finish with some fennel fronds, and that's it. So you just want a little bit of crunch, basically, on your dish. Finish with some fennel fronds. Absolutely beautiful. Just a couple pieces of you. 30 minutes, 6 ingredients, using pork chops as well, which people seem to be a little bit afraid of, but it's so simple, so easy, so full of flavor. My fennel whiskey pork chop. Try it at home for yourself.